What's up, y'all? This is Jason the Chiron, and I don't know what happened to my Jupiter and all signs recording. So we about to get into this one more again in accordance to my perspective. For y'all, this is the first Jupiter and all signs recording. So I'm gonna try my best not to rush into this, but I'm also trying my best not to take too long for y'all who got this limited attention span because y'all been watching a lot of TikToks and YouTube shorts. Y'all still in the vine. If y'all could even download the app, I don't know. But let's go. So Jupiter is the planet of wisdom and expansion, meaning that this planet's influence consists of uh how one, like when we're talking about the natal chart, someone's Jupiter placement can show how one goes about gaining wisdom, how one can look at a situation from multiple point of views. Now, perspective comes into play here, or multiple people's perspective, because we have Sagittarius as one of the signs that's ruled by Jupiter. So the Jupiterian energy consists of the Sagittarius energy as well as the Pisces energy. It is a fire and water planet. So, excuse me. So when it comes to the fire aspect of Jupiter, it is mutable fire. And then Jupiter is also mutable water. So, most importantly, we need to understand how the modality, mode, or quality that, like the mutable quality here, we need to understand that this is all about adaptability and relatability. Okay, so this is adaptable and relatable planet, like Mercury. The only difference between Jupiter and Mercury here, even though they're both mutable planets, is their elements. Mercury is air and earth based. So it's all about air, thinking, communicating, and um and processing information. While over here, when we're talking about Jupiter, it's mutable, but it has to do with fire and water, which is fire, point of view or expression. And then when we're talking about water, we're talking about feelings, emotions, and intuition. So basically, Mercury has to do with things that are going on in this physical world, while Jupiter has to do with things that's going on within the spiritual aspect or behind the scenes realm, right? The spiritual world. So Mercury adapts and relates to more practical matters, or how one may process information in accordance to what they're dealing with in this practical world, this physical world. We're talking about Jupiter. We're talking about adapting and relating to the inner world, which will be shown through one's expression, which will show their point of view, or through one's feelings and emotions, which will make sense of how they utilize their intuition, okay? Or how they expound upon things within the yin realm, which is within the internal realm. So internal, internal, yang, external. So, people, places, and things that's outside of you. Now, with Jupiter, if we were to combine Jupiterian energy with Jupiter with Aries, then we'll have Jupiter, how one goes about gaining wisdom, or how they expound upon information to retain wisdom or to accumulate wisdom, which would be like collect like a whole lot of different points that you're trying to that you may apply to a person, place, or thing, Or in this scenario, we're talking about Jupiter. So we're not talking about thinking and communicating, that's Mercury. So not how you think, but how one expounds upon all these points, which you may accumulate from multiple people, places, and things, which will add to how you see these things, thanks to Sagittarius energy, or how you feel about these things, thanks to the Piscean energy. So, what's Jupiter in Aries now? Jupiter, wisdom and expansion on cardinal fire. Cardinal fire is Aries. So, Jupiter, wisdom and expansion, are one who goes about expanding or expounding their viewpoint based on uh, cardinal initiating and creating fire expression or a point of view. So a scenario that we could utilize for Jupiter in Aries, let's see, what are we going to put everybody in? So let's say we're all at a table, we're at a meeting, and we're trying to figure out how we could expand our business in general, how we could expand our organization, our company, things of that nature. Let's say we're dealing with sales in general, right? So if you have a Jupiter in Aries, they will most likely believe the best way to expand the company is to be out in the field and actually go out and express the viewpoint that we have as a company or what we're trying to initiate here, what we're trying to start, what we're bringing to the table. And they'll be out there and they'll be the ones to help people understand what's going on in the world. Well, how this company can help what's going on in the world or support what's going on in the world. Now, it doesn't really have to do with support per se, but if we're talking about marketing something, then it has to bring something to the table as a product in general, right? Generically speaking, I should say. So, Jupiter and Aries, they're going to be the ones to initiate this viewpoint. They're going to go straight out and be like, hey, look, boo, boo, boo. So, have you ever went through this situation and you had to do with this, and this? Well, this product can help you not have to deal with any of that. It can take care of all of that for you. But the thing is, what differentiates the Jupiter and Aries to the rest of the Jupiterian placements or the signs in the Jupiter placement would be basically they're the ones who are just going to go out and they're going to figure it out. They probably didn't have a plan. They probably just happen to know the company through their personal experience. And they're like, okay, boom, this is what we could bring to the table. This is what comes to the table. Boom. It's just like that. That's all it is. Is it this, and this? Not simple as this. Boom. But that's Jupiter and Aries. They're gonna be like as simple as that. Boom. This is what it is. Bow. Straight. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter and Taurus, now we're talking about a more founded approach when it comes to marketing. So, what is Jupiter and Taurus? Jupiter and Taurus is Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to fixed earth. So, we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to fixed, a fixation on earth, structure, stability, and practicality. So Jupiter and Taurus, they're going to focus more so on how this could foundate someone's situation, and they're going to expound on that point when it comes to marketing. They'll most likely come to the table if we're at a conference trying to figure out how we could make this company more so people want to, invest in our product or whatever we're doing, our cause. They're going to be like, okay, well, what's most important is that we let people understand that this is legitimate. This is something that you could depend on, or make it more dependable to where we take more of the work out of their hands and we can set that foundation for them. Let's say, for example, let's say if the company had to do with, let's say you're trying to add interest to your money, like a bank. Now, some people may know that when you're dealing with banks, you're only gaining interest on whatever on whatever money you're putting in the bank. The only interest that you're gaining is 0.04%, right? But we also know that inflation is growing at a 3% rate annually. So every year there's 3%, like inflation is taking over 3% every year, right? So if your money is growing at a 0.04% interest when you put it in the bank, then the bank's not really helping you, right? Because how long is it going to take for you to get 0.04%? Like how many times can you get 0.0, no, 0.04% out of 3%? That's going to take forever, y'all. That's going to take forever. Let's say, just in general. So it doesn't sound like structure, right? So a Jupiter and Taurus is going to come into play and be like, this just doesn't sound legitimate. That's not going to help. We need to find a way to up the interest with our company. That way we can compete with banks. Otherwise, this company isn't going to have a ground to stand on. It's not going to make sense why people should deal with us, right? Unless we could get our interest rates up to like 4% without plummeting in the marketplace to where we're investing more than what we could gain, this doesn't make any sense. I kind of came at y'all with some Jupiter and Sagittarius type stuff. I'm sorry. I am a Sag sun, right? So kind of my thing. But like my own personal thing. You could even filter out how I talk about these things. You could figure me out. If you watch all these videos, you pretty much got me pegged. You got me figured out. But if you understand how to scope, you understand how to look at this situation, right? But now, if we were to get into like basically just to finish it off, Jupiter and Taurus, they're going to expound upon the foundation. How dependable is this foundation that we're bringing to the table? How dependable is the foundation that someone's presenting to me? Okay. They're going to expound upon those type of things. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter in Gemini, we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to mutable air. So we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to air, thinking, communicating, and processing information. Now, let's say that the Jupiter in Gemini, they hear the point of the Taurus, right? They're going to be prone to relate to the information that they just laid on the table for us all to perceive and break down. For those who may choose to break the information down, unlike this Jupiter in Aries, they might just expound upon their own experiences depending on the rest of their placements. We're talking about Jupiter in Aries, they're just going to expound upon their own personal experiences. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter and Gemini, they're going to relate to the personal experiences that have been communicated to them. They're not going to try to see where you're coming from because they're not fire signs, right? They're going to expound upon what you tell them, right? The information. If like basically, if it's written down on this sheet of paper, they can break it down. Now, they're not going to pick up on the energy of what you're telling them and expound upon that. All right. It's straight logic. That's a Jupiter in Gemini. So they're gonna sit there and they're gonna listen to what everybody has to say. They might come out and say things in the beginning. They might say something and sound like they don't know exactly what they're talking about. They may not know a lot about whatever they're talking about if they were to initiate communication without taking into consideration what another one has communicated in the first place. So with Jupiter here, with Gemini and the Jupiter energy, it's going to be hard for them to really expound upon anything without a cardinal sign initiating and creating something for them to expound upon. And then let's say if there aren't any fixed energies at play here, we're talking about the fixed signs. If there isn't any fixed energy here, then, more so somebody having experience, like it might not seem like they have that much experience here for Jupiter and Gemini to even really depend on them if they're cardinal. But if it's fixed, they're gonna be like, okay, you've been doing this for a while, right? I played football, I played basketball for a long time. It took me a long time to become really good at what I was doing or to perfect my craft. So that's why I'm gonna depend on the fixed sign, right? Now, if they have more cardinal placements along with that Jupiter and Gemini, then most likely they will tend to the people who are cardinal signs. So it all depends. right? It depends on the rest of these placements. And I'm gonna give y'all examples. I'm gonna make up like uh I'm gonna make up like a fake, like we're gonna go through these type of scenarios where I'm gonna try to explain a person based off my own made up placements for them. And if it happens to match any of y'all, put that in the comments when I make that video. But when we're talking about Jupiter and Cancer now, we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to cardinal water. So we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to cardinal, initiating or creating water, feelings, emotions, and intuition. Now, this person will come to the table and they'll be like, okay, we need to make them feel it. We need to let them understand why they need to start doing business with us, or why they need to initiate account with us if we're a financing agency, right? All right. So they'll say this, okay, well, actually, what we need to do is we need to strike their heart. We need to touch their hearts. We need to let them know if they get with us and we're handling their finances, then they'll be able to pay for that life insurance. They'll be able to actually save money instead of just battling inflation neck and neck or being drowned by inflation. And if you could help them understand how this will make them feel more domesticated in their situation, make them feel at home. They could feel like they have a home with us because they get to depend on us as if we're someone that's bringing income into that household by just giving them this opportunity, then they'll stick with us. But it's all about striking the heart. So you might tell them something that can help out their family. This is how Jupiter and Cancer may go about it. This can help out your family. This can help out domestic issues. This can help you be comfortable and not have to worry about this, that, and the third. They'll help you expound upon things of that nature, Jupiter and Cancer. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter and Leo, we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to fixed fire. So we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to fixed, the fixation on fire, a point of view or an expression, or a point of view through expression. So let's say we're the Jupiter and Leo right now, but we're expounding upon where everybody's coming from. Now, let's say Jupiter and Leo, they might look at the Jupiter and Aries individual who's at the table and be like, okay, I see they basically they've been through some hard times with money, but that doesn't mean they know how to make money. They might be aware of that. That person doesn't know how to make money. That person doesn't know how to conduct themselves when it comes to business. This person just wants to jump in the field with no tact. They might fixate their point of view on that thanks to that Jupiter and Leo energy, right? The Leo energy carries characters of that fall in line with the influence of the sun because the sun rules over Leo. All right. And then let's say that the Jupiter and Leo looks at this Jupiter and Taurus individual and they're like, okay, they know a little something. They know what they're talking about. I've seen that before, so I trust where they're coming from. Because of a Jupiter and Leo's personal perspective, what they've experienced is going to allow them to expound upon their own experiences, expound upon situations that they've actually been in that they've shared with another, right? If they haven't shared that experience with another, don't even waste your time. If it doesn't even make some form of practical sense because they are fixed, not because they're fire, but because they're fixed, it gives them more of an earthly like energy about them, then they're gonna be like, okay, this has to make some type of practical sense. I've had to experience this in this reality to some extent because of the fixed modality. When you're dealing with the mutable modality, 9 times out of 10, excuse me, they're going to jump to more so, okay, I'll be a believer. I'm willing to believe. I'm willing to be a little bit more open-minded, more versatile with my understanding and approach. But fixed here, there's going to be some closed-mindedness. Okay. So, but the fact that we're dealing with Jupiter, it's all about being open. It's all about being mutable. So they'll actually take that time to base information off of another. So let's see, Jupiter and Leo, they may be the ones to be like, you know what, everything y'all saying is cool and everything. I agree with Jupiter and Taurus more than I agree with Jupiter and Leo. But what needs to be understood is if we combine the two of what Jupiter and Aries and what Jupiter and Taurus is talking about, like from the point of Jupiter and Aries, they're trying to go out to the field and show people in their face what we're doing. I'm cool with that. Now, Jupiter and Taurus, you're bringing this practical information here, something that somebody will more so get fixated on to get a point across and for us to help them understand how we're beneficial to them. I rock with that too. Let's take those 2 points and let's put them together. That's the way to do it. They'll become fixated on that point because they're fixed fire. They're fixated on that point of view. Now, they were willing to listen to both these individuals because of the Jupiter aspect, right? And if you pay attention, Aries is a fire sign, while Taurus has the fixed modality. You take fire and fix together, you got Leo. So of course they're gonna see some things that actually like they may agree with. They may agree with certain points that Aries or Taurus makes. When we're dealing with compatibility type situations, or how one will resonate with another in some way, shape, or form, you can see if they have similar modalities or elements as well when it comes to compatibility in general. But that's a side note. We'll talk about compatibility in another video. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter in Virgo, we're talking about basically someone who will um, expound on things and gain wisdom based off of how they can adapt their reality with whatever it is at play or whatever the circumstance at hand is. Or they'll focus more so on assisting someone in adapting to their own reality and the practical matters that they have to deal with on a daily basis. Why is that? Well, that's because Virgo is mutable Earth. All right. So we have to deal with Jupiter, which is wisdom and expansion when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. Right. So let's say how this Jupiter and Virgo may tend to this situation. What is the focal point? What exactly are they expounding upon? Helping people adapt. Now, when we're talking about finances, this is an easy breakdown here because it's more so if you don't got enough money to live, you'll die, or it'll be harder for you to survive. It'll be harder for you to even hold on to a piece of change just so that you can have some comfort in your life, right? Now we're not talking about Cancer or the moon here, but it has to do with, finances, and we all know what's up with that. So the Jupiter and Virgo may come to the table and say, well, you know, what we can do to adapt is we can find a way, we'll take those percentages, we'll find a way to fix up this return rate in a sense. Like I was talking to somebody with Primerica, actually had an interview and they were talking about how with Primerica they have 75 to 200 different stocks that are actually invested in to assure the return that somebody will get if they were to invest into Primerica or invest their money into Primerica. So more so like investing in themselves and things of that nature and building the money for them so it could gain interest within their possession with the people that assist them and help them out and things of that nature. So basically that was Primerica's way of adapting to the market system, the marketing system. Instead of just basically putting their money in one stock, they put their money in multiple stocks. They put a little bit of their money in multiple stocks. So 9 times out of 10, their return will always be bigger. Now, Jupiter and Virgo, 9 times out of 10, brought that to the table because now we're able to adapt practically to the marketplace and how we can conduct ourselves in accordance to basically this foundation that may have been fixed at one point, but it's no longer working. So now we've adapted. That's Jupiter and Virgo. They'll expound upon adapting to the structure, stability, and practicality of whatever situation. Now, let's say we have Jupiter in Libra, then we're dealing with an individual who expounds upon or gains wisdom when it comes to just somebody initiating, creating a communication with them. So let's break it all down though. Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to cardinal air. So Jupiter, when it comes to wisdom and expansion, with cardinal initiating and creating, air thinking, communicating, and processing. 9 times out of 10, a Jupiter in Libra would either consult with or they would be a financial counselor. So like they would talk to somebody about how to build their finances in this scenario, like the communication aspect. They would initiate that communication with somebody to gain that information, to gain that wisdom, and they will find out different ways of how to tend to their money to grow more finances. So it's just the fact that they're initiating communication. They're the one who came and talked to you. It was like, hey, what's up with that? How I do this? Boom, boom, boom. Picked up multiple points on it. Now they have wisdom on the matter due to initiating communication. Or they could even expound upon different ways, like the reason why we all come to this table today. They most likely was the person who even said, hey, let's initiate this communication amongst one another so that we can figure out how to expand our business. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter and Scorpio, then we're talking about uh, Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to fixed water. So Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to fixed, a fixation on water, feelings, emotions, and intuition. Now, this Jupiter and Scorpio individual might come in and say, oh, that's cool and all, but still at the end of the day, how are we really gonna like make sure that these people understand that we're credible? We have to tend to how they feel. They're fixated emotions, right? But they're fixated on. People are getting scammed left and right. There's pyramid schemes all over the place. People don't know how they work. How are we going to get that across to them, right? And they might talk about like this on a one-on-one uh, playing field, right? Jupiter and Pisces, they're going to tend to it a little differently with their immutable modality. So let's say the Jupiter and Scorpio, more so what they're focused on is fixating someone in comfort in this scenario. Now, in general, they'll be fixated on someone's feelings, right? Like you could even say that this will be a great placement for somebody who's a consultator as well, which is something I spoke on as a subject matter a couple times in a couple of my videos. This is just one of those placements that are great for consultations, but they're really going to hone in on how you feel and not just a practical matter of things. Like, say if somebody got scammed multiple times and this, that, and the third. Now, if the Jupiter in Scorpio hasn't been scammed multiple times, they might not feel where you're coming from. So they might not even try to waste their time. But if they have, then they'll try to see where you're coming from. They'll be like, you know what? I know exactly what to show you. Let me show you my account. Let me show you how this has made me feel tending to this. Let me show you the money that I've gained and all the things that I could do, which is what most marketers do. They'll show you what they've been able to manifest due to the opportunity that they've taken, um, the type of words they say, they've taken advantage of, right? I've been in marketing and sales for a while now, like a long while, ever since I graduated high school, even a little bit while I was in high school. So about 7 years. So, I have a good background here. But they'll be like, yeah, basically you gotta take risk. And if you haven't taken risks before, I don't know what to tell you. If you have taken risks before or you've been in my type of situation, let me show you. Boom. They're going to personally feel for you. And that's the reason why they're going to expound upon it in that way, because they personally feel where you're coming from. When it comes to how they personally feel, let's say they haven't been through those experiences before, they're going to be like, yo, either at the end of the day, you're willing to take a risk or you're not. You're willing to put your money in or you won't. Either you're going to get the money to put it in here or you won't. Here's my number, get back at me. They might leave it there. It depends on who you're dealing with. It depends on their planetary placements. Some of these placements, more than others, are going to be highly dependent upon other planetary placements. Now, the sign we're about to talk about, Jupiter and Sagittarius, they'll be more so able to just channel their energy directly from the sun, which is more so characteristics and awareness, right? So it won't take too much of a, okay, it depends on this, and this. It varies. It depends. Other videos will show you this. Now, if we're talking about Jupiter and Sag, we're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion, when it comes to mutable fire. So Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to fire, a point of view or expression. Now, let's say this Jupiter and Sag is at the table. They're sitting here, they're picking up on everybody else's viewpoints. They're they're picking up on basically how there's going to be particular people who are going to want to actually invest in this, who will actually see the opportunity in this finance company. They may not waste their time talking to people who don't have a job. They may not waste their time in attempting to talk to people who have never invested in anything, not due to closed mindedness, because they're very open minded, but it might just be they might expound upon the situation, see it from all angles, and be like, if somebody's never made an investment, do you think they're going to invest in anything besides a bank? Do you think they're going to take a chance with their money depleting? They go in their account, they see the money has been depleted in this account, and they're not going to immediately call us with a problem and I be open minded to the fact that, hey, yo, there's some money missing in my account, because they don't understand that this money is borrowed from time to time, but it's also giving back an interest. And you could tell them that, but they may not listen to you because they don't trust you, they don't know you. And at the end of the day, you're going to get a check, you're going to get some money, and you're not sharing it with them. And it's also not going to give them more than what they've invested potentially. They may not take that time. They might expound upon that. But let's say this Jupiter and Sagittarius has other placements where they have more belief in the fact that, people will be dumb not to take part in this situation, this financial freedom opportunity. They may be like, okay, well, look, all you got to do is, walk them through it. Or say if somebody doesn't want to invest now, you could relate to their viewpoint and you could just go out there and you could do it yourself. You could just do it yourself and you let them monitor your account. They don't have access to click anything or whatever that nature where they can scam you potentially, but they're able to see how you do it. You could create a recording of how 1 week ago you had this amount of money. Next week you got more money, and then the next week the money plummets. But then once a month hits, now you have that interest showing. You have more percentage in your account. You take the time, you calculate it out, and you show them how you gained 4% interest within a month. And then show them within 5 months how you gained 20% interest, because 4 times 5 is 20. And then they'll see, oh, I got 1/5 of the money that I've been investing. I've gained an interest of 1/5 of that total investment. Now, if you show them, this is something that they can relate to. They can relate to the experience that you're going through, and now they want to be in that same scenario. Now, Jupiterian and Sagittarius may expound to that type of situation. I shouldn't be saying Jupiterian because that will refer to somebody's sun sign correlating with Jupiter, meaning that their sun sign is Sagittarius or Pisces. So I apologize. Don't let don't let my faulty curriculum confuse you. Basically, just if their Jupiter is in Sagittarius, they're more likely to tend to a scenario where they'll expound upon about they'll expound on how to adapt to another's point of view, right? Or how to help you see their point of view. Now, let's say we're dealing with a Jupiter in Capricorn. Now, Jupiter in Capricorn, we're dealing with Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to cardinal Earth. We're talking about Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to cardinal, initiating and creating Earth, structure, stability, and practicality. So basically, someone who expounds around basically initiating structure or initiating practicality, which is what we're all here at this table about today, discussing how we can expand the business. So the best way to expand the business of Jupiter and Capricorn may go about the situation. It's going like, okay, well, matter of fact, if we really want to initiate some structure and stability and practicality, how about we go about it this way? We start up their account. We put some money in there for them that they won't have access to until they make the initial investment. But we basically invested, let's say we invest $100 into them. We put $25 into their life insurance, $25 toward their emergency funds, $25 toward their savings account and their checking account. And then they get to see that build over a month. And they also see that we haven't touched that money. They go in, they don't see that any money proceedings are going toward our personal bank accounts, any bank accounts that don't correlate with their own. They go on their thing, they're able to see it. They can't touch anything, adjust anything, withdraw anything, but we basically just initiated the practicality around the matter, the fact that this is real. You can really get your money. We've initiated that structure, stability, and practicality of how useful that our company can be. Because you invest $100 this month, you gain 4% interest. All right. So you basically got like, say you basically just made $4 within a month. You're going to make that $4 within a month, right? They see the 104. Now, if they don't trust in that, the two months go by, but they have to make that initial payment. That way we can make sure we're making our money. That way we don't have to adjust percentages or things of that nature. But that's here or there. At the end of the day, they're expounding upon initiating and creating structure, stability, and practicality for the consumers, right? And most of the time when you're dealing with Jupiter, you're going to jump into some Sagittarian type energy because it's Jupiter. Jupiter rules over Sagittarius. So it has to do with tending to the perspective of another individual or multiple individuals. This is a company, so multiple people are going to utilize this, but we're going to be talking to people one on one as if it's Libra energy every moment. Now, we say we take it to the internet, that's a different story. But on that note, let's talk about Jupiter and Aquarius. Now, with Jupiter and Aquarius, they may tend to the internet because everybody's going to be able to expound upon the knowledge and what's going on with their company off the internet. Reason being is we're dealing with Jupiter, wisdom and expansion, when it comes to fixed air. So Jupiter, wisdom and expansion when it comes to the fixation on air, thinking, communicating, and processing information. So they'll be able to always have an asset that they can go to on the internet because it's the internet. Everybody has access to the internet and they'll be able to see what we're all about. Let's make some YouTube pages. Let's make a YouTube page. Let's make a Twitter. Let's do this, that, and the third. Let's show people how well, let's communicate with people and also have like some type of chat service where we could talk to them, we could show them the videos, and we could relay this information. We could help them become associated with our services and how they have helped other people, right? We could show them how we're being humanitarians with this type of stuff. This is what a Jupiter and Aquarius is going to more so expound upon. They're going to expound upon these things, right? Or if we're dealing with a Jupiter and Aquarius type individual, they're going to be like, okay, help me make sense of what you're doing here. Okay, help me make sense of this. If you were to try to help out a Jupiter and Aquarius understand how this would benefit them at all, tell them the percentages, tell them how inflation is impacting us, tell them how our percentages are actually, are beating the inflation percentage every year, right? Or at least it's giving you a better chance at investing your money and profiting your money by utilizing our services, right? So I'm basically saying the same thing over and over again, but it's about the intent of the placement. Okay. It's about the intent of that energy, what it does, its influence, how that energy is carried out. Right. Now, let's say we're dealing with Jupiter and Pisces, last but not least. Jupiter, wisdom and expansion, when it comes to mutable water. So, Jupiter, wisdom and expansion, when it comes to mutable adaptability and relatability to water, feelings, emotions, and intuition. Now, we're talking about touching the heart of these people, multiple people. If we were just Scorpio, then we're talking about just this individual. Think about how much money you can make and how it make you comfortable. But if we're talking about Jupiter and Pisces, we might talk to them more so about life insurance. And we'll talk about how you could benefit your whole family. If you're to pass on, think about how this can impact your family if you don't have anything left behind, or if your money isn't gaining interest right now. Let's say you don't make a lot of money with the job that you currently have. A Jupiter and Pisces may let you know if you invest in life insurance, that $25 is going to add up over time. Maybe you don't expect to die within like, let's say 30 years, but you're steadily investing money in this account. Eventually your $100 is going to turn to $100,000. They'll be able to pay off your funeral fees without having to pull out of their pocket. And on top of that, they'll actually have some money to also foundate their lives due to your passing. There's something you benefit from here, right? So basically tending to the collective uh you say I would say the collective conscious, but that would be more so Sagittarius. But you could say more so the collective subconscious, or the collective feelings at play, right? We'll be able to give them a funeral. It won't have to be a cheap funeral. You won't have to cremate them just because you don't have enough funds to actually properly bury them, and you can't bury them where you want to bury them next to the family because it's super costly. It's paying for it on its own. Tell them we're doing that and watch them flock to us. Now, that was Jupiter in all signs. I hate that I had to record that video again, but like I always say, y'all leave comments. Let me know if there's a better way I could have relayed this information. Let me know if you just simply don't understand. We'll get into it. I would also let watch more videos, but that's not going to stop me from recreating a video for the sake of y'all gaining awareness of how this astrological stuff actually works, right? So stay tuned in because now I redid this video. I already did Saturn. When it comes to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, those placements are so particular and they're subconsciously active planets that really I'd rather just tell people directly about those placements, especially since majority of us all have the same signs in those planetary placements. Okay. So stay tuned in. This was Jason the Chiron, and I'll holla at y'all.